us in.
Oh.
I think we're a little past 7:30, so we'll get started. First on our agenda is Neighborhood Development Corporation update. I'll turn it over to the city manager if he has anything to intro this with. Otherwise, we'll go to our presenters.
No, let's go right ahead and jump in. I think Abby gets to start us out this morning.
Morning, allowing us to come in and do a little presentation, let you know what we've been doing the last year and a half, and talk about what we're doing in the next year. So with that, we'll jump right in here. Let's see if I can, how did she do this? We'll start just talking our NDC Board of Directors this year is a nice mix of some city staff representation. We also have Councilmember Voss on our board, Polk County, as well as some representatives from our private real estate development community, NFC, DNR, and also Bill Gray, who stayed on as a neighborhood representative with the board because he had been involved for quite some years. So we've had a nice group to support us and kind of guide us on where to go and where we're going in the city with our efforts. This past year, obviously, as you all know, we worked really hard in this Highland Park area. We were able to partner with InvestDSM, which really gave us the muscle we needed to dive into this neighborhood and do a lot in a short amount of time. So the green stars on the map there are showing where NDC made investments, and the orange stars are showing where private developers and private investment has come in and purchased property all around throughout that little commercial node. So we'll see a major investment out of our about $2.4 million. You're going to see obviously much more than that take off here in the next 12 to 18 months. So this is a perfect example of our model and how it works, how we go in and kind of set that tone, show that revitalization can occur and it can be lucrative in these neighborhoods, and then we wait for the private market to come in, and it just came in right behind us. So we're able to now take our efforts and start focusing in other areas in the city, but we will maintain a presence here to make sure those businesses continue to stabilize and that those storefronts continue to fill over these next few years. So that's been a great success story for the organization. This past year, we also made a few acquisitions in the city. These are actually sizable acquisitions. This 1818 48th Street. This is Waveland Park, right at 48th and Franklin Avenue. This has been kind of I guess it's been abandoned, I would say, for quite some time. It's been vacant. We did get that under contract here this year, and we'll be closing next month. Indianola Avenue, this is a property at Indianola and Park on the south side of Des Moines, just about a block and a half up from East 14th. It's been a trailer park for quite some time. We worked this past year for several months helping all of the residents that were in that facility find new housing. So there were about 23 families that needed to be relocated. So we worked with them, found them funding, found them housing, connected them with other developers and places to live. So they've all been relocated, and utilities and demolition will be starting now. So we did have to do abatement there as well, took care of all of that, and you'll be seeing that redevelopment occur here over the next year. And then 31st and Forest, this is kind of that last piece of the puzzle. We've obviously been in the Drake neighborhood for 5, 6, 7 years now, and this one is just a vacant lot that's there, and it's just time to kind of bridge that gap and finish that corridor off. We wanted it to be a walkable residential scale in that area versus what's happening on University. And I think we'll be able to accomplish that with our last project here. So you'll be seeing that going up this year as well. And then 3610 Fifth Avenue is in Highland Park. This is on the backside of the bakery. And that's now a vacant lot that we've turned over to InvestDSM to work on a housing project there. So they'll be working on that, maybe with us, maybe with someone else. Some of the partnerships we had this year, we have to leverage these dollars the best we can, and we also helped another organization get their project off the ground. Varsity Theater in the Drake neighborhood needed a guarantor, so our organization was able to step in and be that in order for them to gain their funding to do that project. That has started, and they'll be done. That should open up for shows in October, which will be very exciting to have them back in the neighborhood. Lower Beaver, this would be the Plaza Lane site. We didn't enter into a documented partnership, but what we did is we got some of the pre-development work out of the way so that it would be a more lucrative site to our private investors in Des Moines. So we did environmental studies. We got the urban renewal district set up, just kind of teeing it up for someone to come in, purchase that site, and redevelop. So we've been working with a few developers that have interest on the site, and hopefully we'll see some dirt moving here soon. The partnerships in the Highland Park, we worked with Chuck's and the bakery. So when we approached this neighborhood, we knew we already had good operators. We had landmarks in that neighborhood that were bringing people destination, bringing people to the neighborhood. So with that, we said we've already got the bones. Why don't we work with those business owners and stabilize their real estate for them, because they're so focused on the business day to day. So we did enter into documented partnerships with Chuck's and Highland Park Bakery, where NDC holds the real estate, and then we finance the redevelopment, and then we have an agreement with them that they can buy the real estate back to us once it's stabilized. So the bakery and Chuck's both are already stabilized. They're worth more than what was put into them, so they can easily go seek financing, which we would do through Pivotal. We'll get to that in a minute, but and purchase their buildings back for their business. And that was a model we hadn't really entered into yet, but it's proven successful with those two. And then on Ingersoll Avenue, we're working with a private developer on the Star gas station location that is proposed to be a mixed-use project. So that would be your first floor of retail and 20 units above, and that would be mixed income from 30% all the way to 80%. So that'll be a nice filler there. It's just a property that's been kind of underutilized over the years, but I think will prove to be a good asset there.
How big is that property?
It is not very big, but you can't believe the parking that fit on there. It's wild, because Louis got kind of some parking there too, and so it all just seemed to flow together, because we knew parking would be pretty important to the neighborhood. So, yeah, you'll see that layout coming through. Absolutely, yeah. Yep, yes. And then looking ahead over these next, this next year or two, Franklin Avenue, obviously with the 48th and Franklin acquisition, would be a master plan that takes us all the way down to the library. We don't have control of any of those properties, but we'd certainly love to. And then even some of the cemetery ground to the south that they are not using, their organization could use some funding at this point, so it'd be a nice partnership to take some of that and just, we've met with the neighborhood a little bit on that, very high level. What uses do you want to see? They'd love to have a market there, dog park, things like that, a lot of green space. But also just bringing in housing so people can live in the neighborhood from all scales and all types. So we'll be working with private developers on that just to leverage our money a little bit further. And we'll see that hopefully occurring. It'll probably start this next spring, so maybe next
Can
March.
I ask, did you get the entire Franklin, the old Franklin Mercy Center, or was it just the, I know there were two lots that were kind of separate?
Yep, so it's that hardcore, right, there's an old hospital that sits right at the corner on the north, and then south of it is a clinic, Mercy, and we did not get that one.
Okay.
But we do know who's moving in on that.
Easy to work with them and everything?
Yes,
Awesome.
they'll be wonderful. It's another nonprofit, so we'll be able to, we've already talked about what our vision is, and they're willing to participate that in a couple of years when it needs to come to fruition, so.
Very
yeah.
exciting. Thanks for that.
Yes, thank you. And then Indianola Avenue, that redevelopment project, obviously, that I've touched on, the Forest Avenue piece, 31st and Forest, East 9th and Hull, this one's really exciting. I've loved this little node. It's right by Grandview. Could take off just as quickly as Highland Park and Drake did for us. There's already an audience there with the students, and that neighborhood's very strong, very supportive. They've come out, and we did a big, what would you call it, just kind of a charrette, if you will, on April 7th, and we had probably 80 or so people show up to that and just gave us great feedback on what uses they'd like to see there, what their problems are in the area. So we have all that feedback, and our committee met last week and kind of put a plan to that. So property owners have reached out to us. Businesses that are already there have reached out to us. They want to stay. They, again, are just that destination, that anchor in the neighborhood that we need to stay, but their real estate around them is just crumbling. So we can go into partnerships with them like we did in Highland Park and hopefully get their businesses better storefronts. And then Columbus Park, we're working on some high-level planning there. This is in partnership with InvestDSM and DMRC. We went to them last year and asked for some funding to take their dollars into a neighborhood setting, and their board agreed to do that, so we're very excited about that and that investment with us. So you'll be seeing some plans coming through on that. And then Riverview Park. This is an area that the city and the county has obviously invested a lot of money and time into, and there's unique opportunities around there to redevelop some of those industrial buildings. So we'll continue kind of working with private developers that are already there, looking at the same thing, and see if we can't pull some things together there over the next year.
Will Columbus Park be more on the commercial side or residential?
It's mixed use. Yep, so you'll see commercial pieces in there, and
On
then,
First?
yeah, it's a quadrant kind of around Graziano's.
Yep.
Where it all
Okay.
tees, so, yep, we'll be bringing some plans through for that. And this map just kind of shows you where we are working currently with all the projects that I just discussed. So a nice scatter throughout a lot of neighborhoods, really, and wards. So that's where the impacts will be happening over the next year or two, couple years. In addition to the bricks and mortar piece that we do, there's technical assistance as well. Folks can come into our organization. We've had private developers come in, business owners, things like that, looking for a new location. We can help them with site selection. We help them through the technical piece of the pre-development, so getting in touch with the city, understanding what that process looks like, helping them through that. We've shown up to P&Z for them or with them to help them through those things, because they can be intimidating and overwhelming to someone who's running a business from day to day. So we love to play that role because it gets projects done without our sourcing necessarily. So we feel it meets the mission and keeps that going. And then we'll help them with financial projections, sourcing, finding dollars to help their projects get done, and even financing. And then community-wise, we've been, well, actually, I should say Sadie Trenton with my office, our operations director, has really led this Riverview Stage effort in the Parks Area Foundation. We were asked to join that board this past year and really help them get a structure around everything. It's a massive undertaking, that stage, and making sure that it does go exactly as planned every year. And so her role in that has really helped tee that up for a really successful summer. I think that'll be fun to watch. And then the Neighborhood Investment Corporation as well. We sit on that board. Councilmember Voss is on that board with me, and just helping them stabilize their organization so they can continue to do more housing projects throughout the city. And then Pivotal Business Partners. This is one we're going to talk about a little bit more today. This is, the 504 lending program. It's a loan through the Small Business Administration. It's a federally backed commercial loan, and I'll just jump into that because that's kind of a big piece of our program today. This, the history of Pivotal is that it was formerly the Corporation for Economic Development. Some of you might be familiar with that, but that was run here in the City of Des Moines Economic Development Office. And in 2019, the director had announced his retirement, and the city was not going to move forward supporting that through a staff role. So our board, with the corporation of the CED, if you will, needed to find a resource or to run that program or just dissolve the program. So we voted to continue the program and find somebody to manage it. And so when you get into the weeds of this program, it does say that the CDC must have a full-time professional staff. The organization could not afford to do that, so we looked into some ways to do it without that. And the SBA is authorized to waive that full-time role if you can find a nonprofit within your market that focuses on economic development and to manage it. And then you would hire then a professional lender, commercial lender, and do professional service contracts with both. So our board, the CED, did approve NDC to act as that manager, and then Jim Langen, who's with me here today, I'll have him come up in a moment, to do the actual boots on the ground and commercial lending. So NDC's been able to throw some projects at him anytime, like I said, with that technical resource. We have business owners coming in. When Highland Park Bakery is ready to buy, when Chuck's is ready to buy, Remax in the neighborhood on 6th Avenue went through this program as well. So we just sent him on a Jim, and he does all the work. So any questions for NDC? I try to keep you all updated as much as I can, but
Yeah, thank you. We
good,
appreciate
yeah,
it.
lots going on. So thanks for your time. And this is Jim Langen here, handles our commercial lending.
Good
I'll let
morning.
you run with it.
Thank you, Abby, appreciate it. And thank you all for allowing me to come on in and talk a little bit about what we do. This is a treat for us to have an audience to discuss the 504 program, because even though the I'll talk a little bit about the rebrand here in a second, but I spent 30 years in the banking industry, running banks and making loans, so I've done this for a long time. Used the SBA 504 program extensively, but I think I was one of the few. So when I present to folks, I do tend to kind of gush over the program a little bit because I think it's one of the better kept secrets around in finance. I'll tell you why here in just a second. So the rebrand, as it says in the slide in front of you, as Abby said, when we came in, we needed to kind of well, give it some life, if you will. It needed to kind of come up, get up off the mat and get out into the community, get out in the statewide presence. And so what we did is we entered into a rebrand with a professional, and NDC helped us amazingly in that effort, and ended up we rebranded ourselves as Pivotal Business Partners. And why we did that is because we wanted to let the public know that they could come to us, and we don't, even though our main focus is the SBA 504 program, we can pivot, and if it doesn't work, then we can find a place for the business owner to go, or whether that's back to NDC or other different financial partners that can help. So, and Abby, does this just? I just wheeled the mouse. Look at that. That work? Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. So just diving in here a little bit, because I know I've got limited time, but the SBA 504 loans, as it says, provide small businesses with long-term fixed rate financing options. Really, it's one program, but it's highly centralized, meaning you have to qualify for it. So not every business or not every property can qualify. There are ways to do that, and we go through that with every business owner. The one main thing you have to be is a for-profit business and be considered small under the definition of the Small Business Administration. So we go through that with the borrower, and as it says there, we partner with a third-party lender. So that would be a bank or a credit union. And the main thing there, as the slide says, it reduces the equity needed by the borrower. So typically, in bank situations, you're required to bring in 20, 25%, sometimes maybe more depending on the project. With the SBA 504 program, you could bring in as little as 10%. The SBA does ask for more if the project is special purpose or if, say, the business is 2 years old or less. So they do ask for more equity contribution in those two situations, but otherwise it's going to be 10%. And as it says there, the term up to 25-year amortization. So that's the other big benefit to the client is 25 years, and the rate is fixed for all 25 years through the SBA. Now, of course, recently we've had some increase in interest rates, and the cool thing about the 504 program with rising interest rates is that even though our interest rates rise, typically our rates are below market. So you've got kind of three different niceties or benefits to the borrower. You've got the low down payment, you've got the 25-year fixed rate, and then that rate is usually lower than what you see pretty much anywhere. So the best kept secret, nobody finances 25 years with a fixed rate. Just I've yet to find it anywhere around the world. So here we are. And then the rest of it's in there. So, and as I said, there's some eligibility factors. Eligible businesses, manufacturing, retail, wholesale, service, construction. Really, like I said, for profit and considered small. So like it says there, annual net profit less than $5 million. We do have the requirements of, the 504 program when it was created in the 70s was a jobs program. The federal government said, hey, we want to create jobs. So for every $75,000 in SBA dollars that are borrowed, the borrower must create one job or retain one job. So you can move to a new project and provide evidence that you'll retain. One of the other parts of this over the years that has been a little bit of a misnomer is that the project must be 100% owner occupied. It doesn't have to be 100%, it can be 51 or more. Now, over time, the SBA does say, we'd like you to increase your owner occupancy in the building, but we've been able to qualify several business owners for that were 51% or more. Our performance, just talking about this just a little bit, as I mentioned, we wanted to breathe a little life into the business, and certainly we had some roadblocks put in our way with the pandemic and just the overall size of our organization. With basically it was just me, and then I ended up hiring an assistant. And so as you see, our performance from 14 to 19, we closed 9. We call them debentures. That's what the SBA calls them. They're basically it's a fancy word for the government goes out to Wall Street and sells bonds. That's how they raise the 504 money. From 2020 to present, however, we've been able to kind of hit a little bit of a stride for us. We've closed 10 debentures. We've got 4 closing. Our fiscal year ends at the end of June, and we've been pretty excited because we're able to, for the first time, tell our board in the 2.5 years that I've been around that we're actually, making a lot of headway. Bless you. And so, as you can see there, also, we only receive income two different ways. When the debenture is closed, we receive a monthly service fee income based on the loan amount, and then we receive an origination fee up front, but that's just a one-time deal, and we use all of that to operate on. As it says there, so we've been able to increase our origination fees and our service fees, so we're really happy about the progress we've made, and we're getting awfully close to hitting our budget, so we really like that. Our pipeline, almost $13 million. In the banking business, a typical commercial lender might be asked to bring in 10 to 15 million a year. We probably, because we only finance, I didn't go into this whole thing, but and I'll take a second to do that. Of the project, say if you got $1 million project, the third-party lender, the bank or the credit union, finances the first 50%. So they would finance $500,000, and then we would come in and finance the next 40%, or $400,000, and we take a second mortgage. So the bank or the credit union would be in first position, we'd be in second position. So it's kind of an important detail I left out in the fact that definitely encourages the financial institution to want to take part in the 504. You know, they can sleep well at night, which, yeah, I certainly like to do that. But anyway, where I was going with that is typically if a commercial lender would have a $20 million goal, ours that we've had in the last couple of years would probably be in the $40 to $45 million range. So we feel pretty good about our past and our potential. We do have some leads that amount to a little over $8 million in debentures.
So when you talk about pipeline and leads,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you mentioned, I guess, a couple, right, between Chuck's and the bakery. Would those be considered pipeline, or where do they fall in that? And then what else? Huh?
Those are, yeah, they're not in our.
They're not even pipeline or leads. Okay.
Not yet.
So what would be? Can you talk about what's in the pipeline or the leads?
I can give you an idea of what kinds of deals we're working on, if that makes sense, just the types of businesses, if you will. So recently we closed a greenhouse style business, which in 30 years of lending, I'd never closed a greenhouse, which I thought was kind of fun for us. We'd not entered that business, but they were able to work a 504 that way. An environmental company we just closed, a veterinarian. We have 2 dental practices. One's a dentist, one's an orthodontist. We have, thinking on the fly here a little bit, we have a manufacturer that we're nearing closure. And then, they're pretty wide-ranging. We have a couple restaurants. A lot of folks, restaurants are a good target because there's a lot of them, but they're also challenging. For banks and credit unions, though, they like the fact that they're only in at 50%. So we do look at them, but we don't have a ton of them. So it's a pretty diverse portfolio, honestly.
Yeah. And are you geographically dispersed beyond Des Moines, or is this all in Des Moines?
That's a really good question, honestly. So when the CED first came about with the 504 program, the SBA only allowed the certified development companies, that's what we are, CDC, to operate in certain market areas. The CED could only operate in the city of Des Moines, within the city limits. And so they did that, and people got to know that that's what the CED was doing. And then about 15 years ago, the SBA kind of thought, well, hey, we're not serving everybody. So they said, okay, all you CDCs, you can go statewide and lend in any market within your state boundaries. So there are 5 CDCs in the state of Iowa, and we bump into each other every once in a while, but we're really not competitive. We can do exactly the same thing for the exact same pricing. So we generally like to let everybody stay in their own lanes. We do have another CDC here in Des Moines. They're much larger than us, the corporation, or excuse me, the Iowa Business Growth Company. And so they're much larger than we are, but we generally don't overlap too much. So in answer to your question, we can go statewide anywhere now. So these loans that we've closed and are in our pipeline have been both from the city of Des Moines, within the city limits, and outside.
What proportion?
I'd say about 25% are within the city, and the rest are outside.
Jim, I have a question. How long does it take to close a loan from beginning to end?
Yeah, I would tell you it varies depending on the borrower. It depends on the velocity of SBA applications. And as we found out recently, when you throw in a pandemic, it really affects the timing. If you take that out, so the SBA gives us, on a weekly basis, they give us an estimated time of how long it takes them to pick up a file and review it and get back to you. And right now they're operating about 11 days. And that it is an estimate because different things happen and, with all the different programs they operate. During the pandemic, that stretched up to as high as 35 days. So for us, we were waiting a month to get an answer back on any file. And if you don't have your file perfect and all the answers aren't there, you're hustling to get it back in there so the clock will start over. So generally, I would say, if a project comes to us, I would almost say it takes about 3 to 4 months to get it from beginning to end, generally, if everything goes according to Hoyle.
So Jim, one question for you. Can you go back one slide and tell me where your break-even point is there? You said you were close with the origination fees and the servicing fees. What does that mean?
As far as the fees itself, or just when we become where we need to be, where we want to be?
Yeah.
It's an interesting question there because we've been operating based on kind of from behind for a while and nearing our point where we're going to converge. And once we converge, we keep going.
Sure.
Which is really a nicety in finance because our service fees accrue overnight. They're not just over and done with. So we're going to be, those are total numbers, but for any one given year, we're probably in that 12 to 13 million in debentures will break us even. And so we've originated, I don't think I have that on there, but we've originated about just short of 10 since I've been around. So our break even's about a little over 12.
Annually?
For our total portfolio, actually.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So we started, for a picture, we started a little under 5.
Okay.
So those things pay off, you need to find.
You do. And we haven't experienced a ton of payoffs since I've been around. We've experienced a couple. And, those are business sales or what have you. In years past, now that interest rates are going up, if they ever decide to go down again like they did, we'll see payoffs with our new stuff. But with the deals that we've just done, the interest rates are so favorable, it's going to be awfully hard to see those pay off.
25 years.
25 years. I mean, they've been in the 2s and the 3s. Right now, the rates just came out literally on Friday. We can close a 25-year debenture at a little over 5%, which I bought my first house, it was 9%, so 5%,
5% still good, but most of your loans have been, you said 2 or 3%. Well, they're not going to buy out. They're not going to go redo that.
no, they're not. No, so it's a really good question. So, when you do the math, when we break
Right.
even, we're going to be there and we're going to
Yeah.
be healthy, which is great. And as a nonprofit, that means we get to, the SBA requires that we keep some money in reserve, which we had and we've been using. But after that, then we can, as part of our plan, we would be able to reinvest that in the community.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Any further questions, council? All right,
Awesome.
thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right, I think, Steve, you're up. We're going to chat about Connect Downtown.
Absolutely. Let me get my presentation. We'll just scroll down.
She's been paid.
No, this is a different PDF than editor. Let's see if I have another. What we could also do is I could just use my PowerPoint. That might be easier. Then we could do the page down. Otherwise, you have to kind of roll down like, yeah. Thank you. Let's see if that comes. There we go. All right.
But yeah, and that's.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there we go. No, you don't want me. You don't want me. All right. Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council, I'm Steve Neighbor, resident of Des Moines and city engineer for the City of Des Moines. Also with me today, giving this presentation, is Principal Traffic Engineer Corey Bogenreef. Just to set a disclaimer, we did not call each other and coordinate our blue pants, silently flag socks, and everything. That
He
was
forgot
just a
the tie.
Yeah, he did, yeah. Yeah, he hasn't got his Des Moines flag yet. So I just want to make that clear. We did not call each other to coordinate all that, but very excited today to provide you all with an update of where we are on Connect Downtown. And so I also do have some other team members with me today. We've got John Davis, our city traffic engineer, Jeff Wiggins, transportation planner, Tom Block, deputy city engineer, as well from the engineering department. So, and so what we're going to cover today, we're going to give you kind of a background of Connect Downtown. Corey's going to give you an update on some projects that were completed, as well as some that are in progress. And then we're going to talk about some upcoming and planned projects. Okay. So, this slide says Connect Downtown started as the Des Moines Walkability Study in 2016, which, again, that study was a collaborative partnership with the Greater Des Moines Partnership, as well as the Urban Land Institute. But really, I believe that Connect Downtown, Move DSM had started as part of a planning effort that with the Greater Des Moines Tomorrow Plan, as well as Plan DSM, our comprehensive plan. I think our transportation plans are a compilation and basically an implementation plan of the values that our residents had articulated during those planning efforts. And when we talk about what is Connect Downtown, Connect Downtown is the transportation master plan essentially for downtown. Move DSM is our citywide transportation master plan. Connect Downtown is the transportation master plan that focuses on downtown. It's the basis for how our streets and transportation system could evolve and develop over the next 20, 25 years. So there was extensive public outreach in all these planning efforts, including Connect Downtown. And I just threw a few of them up on the screen there. There was So, huge public meetings. I think one public meeting alone, they had like over 400 plus comments just from one public meeting. On top of that, there were events. I think maybe a lot of you may remember, there was a street event on August 7th that, that you see the flyer there, where they actually kind of, had Grand Avenue as kind of a demonstration display. Lots of people attended that. There was also an online interactive map that's shown there, just kind of a graphic where people can provide comments, and then you can see some of the media press release. So a lot of public engagement done for this effort. And Connect Downtown was adopted by the City Council in 2018 as an element. It's a part of Move DSM. Again, Move DSM is an element of Plan DSM, our transportation master plan. Talk about goals. I think that the first one is in my opinion, the main one. That's making our streets safer for all users. That's pedestrians, bicyclists, transit users, and motorists. And when we talk about the next one, transportation choices, that's always been clear in our residents during all these planning efforts, that regardless of how they get around, they want transportation that's usable and safe for everyone. Economically successful character placemaking. I do remember, a quote from Jeff Speck when he was here. Do we want to create a transportation system that provides a place that we can get to quickly and leave quickly, or do we want to provide a system a place where we want to be? And so that's just a thing I thought that was a pretty good quote to think about with all this, with those two goals. In terms of connected, when we make our streets safer, making downtown more connected, we've got a city that's a vibrant center of activity and culture. It's why I moved my family here, and I think that making it connected makes this a great place to work and live, as well as being a regional destination. So I think that, those are the goals that are stated in our Connect Downtown plan. There's a whole bunch of benefits to all this. Streets that encourage slow speeds. If I do the math, if I'm driving in a vehicle starting at the state capitol and then driving 2 miles across downtown to say about West or 18th Street, that's about 2 miles. If I drive 35 miles an hour versus driving 25 miles an hour, it's a minute 22 seconds. I guarantee you, don't throw many guarantees out, but I guarantee you I could find a minute 22 in every person's day that they can that it's not worth the speed to drive faster. So again, the focus is, it's not an interest of getting somewhere quicker, it's getting somewhere there safer. And so that's, as vehicle speeds increase, so does the likelihood of the severity that a crash could result in a more serious crash. And again, a number of other benefits that you can see down there. Again, we're talking about a lot of different things from making walkability, making it more comfortable and safe to cross the street for pedestrians, and to making it more much easier for transit users. Is a huge benefit. And again, as you go down there, the access to the Des Moines Raccoon River's connection to the trail system, there's that connection component again, excuse me. And then within Connect Downtown is an implementation plan. And this map that you see on the screen is taken right from Connect Downtown. There are short-term, medium-term, and long-term projects. Again, Connect Downtown was a 30,000-foot level plan. The plan, as Corey will show you, he's done an outstanding job piecing everything together of how that plan is moving along. But again, notice that what you'll see happens is other infrastructure projects, developments, impacted wind projects will happen. So you'll see him show that the city has made great progress, not only in some of the short-term projects, but you'll see some medium and longer-term projects. But that's because we've had some infrastructure projects and developments happen that have impacted these things.
And
So-
Steve, so this map that we're looking at now is all part of Connect Downtown?
Yep, that is literally a snippet from.
That would include University Avenue, where we have no easy way to cross the street from East 14th on down.
Yep, Connect Downtown does include East University, yep.
Okay.
Yep,
Where we just had a person killed
yep.
because there's no easy way. I just have to bring that up.
Okay,
And
yep,
and
yep.
you've seen my emails, you've
Sure,
all seen
yep.
my emails that I
Yep,
sent.
Yep, so,
But I'm very concerned that we're not focusing on connectivity right there.
Okay.
That people can't cross the street.
okay.
So will we work with the Iowa DOT to work out something, especially around those schools there, that we can do something rather quickly to address some of those concerns?
Yep, and we can certainly talk to them and work with them on it. I believe that the city did work with the IoT to put in a crossing, when I think this is probably before all of us, but just right next to the school, just right to the east of the school, there was a hawk signal put not too long ago. I think it was right before I came to the city, is what I've been told.
On
but-
University?
Yep. So-
Am I correct, though, to say that this entire section of University that we see on here, that is the section the city controls? The DOT doesn't control the section until further east?
No.
The DOT would control the east section, but I think, Councilmember Schumacher, you're right, it is, I think the split is at 235? Oh, no, East 14th, that's right, it is East 14th.
So this entire section right here is the section that we control?
Yep.
Well, that's not what John Davis has told me in his emails.
Nope.
What I've heard is, because I've been working on it for 5 years to get some safety measures put in right here. And I have an email that you just sent last week that says, well, it's DOT, there's nothing we can do.
East,
I don't understand
It's
that.
on the other, it's east of East 15th there, Linda, where it's not in this Connect Downtown area.
Well, but there's East 14th.
yep. East,
Okay.
yeah.
It's to the east,
East.
the accident happened,
17.
yeah,
Okay.
to the east of this area. So it is under the Iowa
Yep.
DOT is where
Yep.
we're talking about. We just need to make sure that we're doing everything possible that we can have a safe crossing. Since that was brought up, we'll go ahead and address it now. And I appreciate Linda bringing that up.
We need,
but,
we need to work with DOT now.
Let's get back on that's an issue that should be addressed, and I think there's emails and other conversation, and the point is noted.
Yep, but Mayor Pro
stay
Tem,
on-
I've been trying for 5 years, and I keep getting the answer, there's nothing we can do,
What-
and I'm not buying that.
Well, I think you should have a conversation with the manager and staff about that issue.
I have.
It's been brought up. We're going to continue with our presentation.
If we can get back onto this section of University, if that's what we want to talk about, I do think that the issues that Linda is bringing up could be easily, like, we could see that anywhere on this stretch of University. I think, I'm glad to see that this is in the short term. I would love to see it be one of the first things we do, this stretch of University. I know I've said this before, I don't know who I've said it to, but when you think of, crumbling infrastructure in Des Moines, like, I think of this stretch of University, especially around MLK and 19th over there. And as of connectivity, like this, at least in my ward, is the major barrier to downtown. It's the separating line where all the neighborhoods that are like near downtown, you can't walk to downtown from those neighborhoods. And so I would love to see us move quickly on this stretch that we do control of University into getting into that updated and walkable and safe zone.
So,
we talked about, Councilmember Shoemaker and I talked about part of that stretch. Is that slated for some type of street improvement?
Not this stretch.
No reconstruction that would be west of, Mercy Hospital or anything like that? There's nothing?
No, and so that's what you'll see as part of this plan. When this plan originated, there was a hope to have some private participation in this, in Connect Downtown, and that would have hopefully accelerated it. So what you'll see today is that we've been trying to work with the street infrastructure projects that we have, sewer projects, resurfacing projects, and developments to do projects. And so to answer your question, yeah, we've been working on the west on University on the west side, because we've had
Yeah.
resurfacing projects, and then we also had the Drake streetscape that came up. So that's what's stemming these. Like, Corey's going to talk about East Court Avenue. East Court Avenue, you can see right there, is a medium-term project. It's going to be an awesome project, but it's because we had money programmed for reconstruction, not.
So is that not in our CIP over the next 5 years, any type of reconstruction on that
No.
portion?
No.
Do you know if that needs reconstruction or resurfacing?
It can be either one. So East Court Avenue, we're actually reconstructing it and moving curbs, which is in my opinion kind of the ultimate solution, because but there are times where, like on University Avenue between 31st and Polk, we had resurfacing programmed in, so we're not where we're actually just milling the pavement down, the curbs stay the same, and that's primarily paint.
But this section, you don't know if it is slated for, like, it needs reconstruction, like if we were going to work on it, it would be reconstruction, or?
I don't see it for full reconstruction in the planning efforts.
I guess I meant, and like, we have the plan of, like, just like what streets are going to need to be updated, and like what state our streets are in.
Yeah, it's pretty rough there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MLK and
Yeah.
I'd have to
in that area. I mean, it would be nice to get us, something that would,
Yes.
that's a pretty rough stretch. I can't imagine that it's not going to have any type of maintenance done to it over the next 5 years.
I'd have to check, and I agree with you. Probably there could be sections of it. The other challenge is also, how does it all stack up, right? Because I'm pretty sure that the whole stretch in green is not programmed for something, so it's probably.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But I know that there was concerns between like Keogh and probably as you go further to the west.
Yeah.
There's some rough, I cannot believe that portion would not be in our CIP for at least resurfacing of some sort or some type of reconstruction. Yeah. Down
It could be.
I mean, that's rough. And if it's not, then we better take another look at it.
Yeah.
Because as you come across to MLK and through that University intersection, that is extremely rough, especially on that intersection.
It's also very well traversed by pedestrians, even in the state that it's in. So I do think, I was pretty concerned when I saw this wasn't in our CIP. I think that we need to make this a major focus.
And so, I'd have to check our public works map. I don't know for certain if there could be sections of the roadway that are programmed. Yep.
It would be nice to know that for all of our sakes. I think that's, one of our biggest criticism is streets. We all hear it. We all have, tried to put our money where our mouth is, but some of these main corridors where people are traveling, the Southwest Ninths, the universities, the Fluor Drives, if we're not really getting to the, where people are really driving at, I mean, we're going to get constant criticism all the time. And so I've stated that to Scott, and I know that's not part of this conversation, but I think that since it was brought up, I think that we just need to touch on that. And I know that's not just you, that's you and Jonathan working together. So just keep that in mind to where, we need to take a look at some of these corridors. I know that a lot of us hear that. What are you doing for the streets? What are you doing for the streets? Right, and it's rough. And a lot of the corridors are very rough in certain spots. We'll fix some of the spots, but then there'll be long stretches where we don't fix anything for years, and it just, so. But, sorry, I didn't mean to get off topic, but.
No,
go
I
ahead.
think reconstructing or doing whatever we need to do for university would go a long way in this plan as well, just like connecting almost all the northern neighborhoods to downtown. So I would like to see that happen sooner rather than later.
Yep, and I'll check on the university if any sections, and obviously, please know that when we do this, there's obviously the hurdle of the balance of when, that there was a section of resurfacing programmed, and so when do we take the step and increase the scope and spend more money to move curbs and do other things versus somewhere else, right? It's all a balance, and we try and find that balance where, just because we touch something, we do everything, and then we can't do anything versus doing something. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but what I'm talking about is the scope creep. And so that's a challenge that we face when we're trying to juggle all the resurfacing that you see on the map that our public works streets publishes versus where we should focus our energy. I think that's kind of the hope of, when we do Vision Zero, is where do we hone in on where where the high percentages of crashes, where are the areas where we can do correctable measures to actually, to solve issues. And when I say correctable, that, there's some correctable measures where we can actually make improvements that we think will actually reduce crashes that are actually occurring. So,
I mean, I don't know if we need a traffic study around like MLK and 19th, but I would say like I'm comfortable with a much larger scope in this section simply because University over on like the 31st in that area is more of a residential street than we're talking about over here. This is kind of like an alternative to 235.
yep.
So yeah, I would just be comfortable with a larger scope here.
Could I squeeze in a comment
Yep,
here?
yep.
Thank you. So for us and for the public, help us understand what short-term means.
So if I recall, short-term was in that, the goal within that, hopefully that 5 to 7 year period in the CIP planning effort. But again, I think that's
But some of the,
much funding.
the roads that are marked as short-term aren't in the CIP,
Right,
right?
right, yep.
So that's like,
It's more.
what's a good number for like, if someone trying to understand green, short-term is really how many years?
It's hard, and I know this is not, I'm not giving you a good answer here. It's more about when the fundings come available, where would we focus and prioritize our effort? It's hard for me to give a number because again, when this plan started, there was a hope that there would be a substantial private investment. And there were several meetings with business owners about doing that to try and accelerate it. And so it's just, it's so
That was
funny.
mostly downtown, Steve. When this plan came about,
Yep.
we had, the buy-in from the downtown community was,
Yep.
They were supposed to help
Well,
kind
yeah.
of pay for some of these projects, and at least like you said, I don't see a lot of that.
Well,
happening.
I think you have another 20 or so slides. I think some of the questions that have been raised will be addressed in some of the later slides.
I
So,
think Councilmember Mandelbaum's in a hurry this morning. I could
well,
another appointment.
I think I'd like us to stay on topic a little bit because we could spend a lot of time and not address the things that are in the slides. So,
Well, I think that the things that we brought up are concerns, and it is part of this map. And I know that there's been talk about it, and so we do want to address some of those. I know we've got off topic a little bit when we went to the east of University, but some of the things that we're talking about right now is the map. And it is a short term, and we needed to know what short term means.
right.
And so
I think it
just
also
want to
shows
clarify. I understand we're trying to be efficient and move ahead, but we do need to make sure that we do address this entire
I think part of the
area.
problem is it's a much bigger map than just downtown. So it's further out. It
Yeah.
goes further than I think most people imagine by going clear to University. I think
That's the
most
connect
people's
piece.
concept is that it's just that
Yeah.
core downtown, but it's really getting people to that core. So
Absolutely.
different conversations.
Yeah. Just real quickly, though, I do need to add that this is the vision, and the CIP is where we're actually doing design work, real estate, and such. So the CIP is going to determine what the next projects are for the next several years. And
It's
this
vision into implementation.
Yes, and so that this doesn't supersede in any way. When I hear that there's a strategy shift in the political will, then we will go back and look at the CIP to see what we can do. But it's the CIP that really is what the next 2 or 3 years are going to.
I think that's all we're trying to communicate to you is that we want that in the CIP soon.
And maybe this map will help answer Councilman Voss's question a little more. This is what's in the CIP. What you see on this map, this is what we have some money programmed either for actual construction, some is only programmed for study or analysis, but this is what folks can expect to see us working on over the next 5 years based on the current CIP. And so in terms of a timeline, the short term, medium term, long term, that's a prioritization. This is actually what folks will see efforts on that is either recently completed, under construction soon, as some this year, or planning efforts.
So, and I appreciate that, but there is, and I'll go back to my other statement, there is a lot of corridors that are not
Yeah.
in our CIP, and now we're just going to focus on downtown, where I mean, you look around, there's not a lot of folks coming downtown, but they are traveling on the corridors. I mean, I'm concerned, especially of Southwest Ninth, where we have, you know, over, you know, from Park to McKinley, that needs some type of reconstruction. And then as you go further towards downtown, where we've had people die in multiple accidents, that we need to find a solution and a study to figure out what we're going to do. But, you know, if we're going to just focus on this, I'm not sure if that's what the neighbors are asking us to do. And that's always been the challenge with Connect Downtown.
Yep.
And I'm fine with changing the streets as we do the reconstruction, but I don't want us to lose focus on some of the corridors. And I believe that that's been a clear message from myself and from some of the neighborhood leaders that have been asking for this. I'm fine with switching the streets, but you also, when we decided to do this, this was part of buy-in from the business community. And that has not happened to my knowledge, and you said it. And so how much is it a priority for the businesses down here for us to keep investing when they're not going to invest? That's always been the challenge since we started this Connect Downtown. And we're going to continue to move down this path, but they're not buying in with their dollars.
Well, let's put this in context and what Connect Downtown is about and the moment that we are in. Because Connect Downtown, as we started this, it's about making safer streets and making streets accessible for all users, pedestrians, bikers, you know, people using any other types of mobility, transit access. And part of what that is for, downtown is not just a business district, and when you make it too much about the business district, it's also a neighborhood and a cultural and entertainment hub. And those other uses in a post-pandemic world, those other uses are more important in some respects. Downtown from a business district has maybe changed in terms of the volume and how often people are here. But part of what saved our downtown and kept our downtown vital is it wasn't just a business district. It's also a neighborhood and a residential sector. It's also a cultural and entertainment hub. And the pieces of Connect Downtown that we're talking about tie in very well with those pieces. And so making that contingent just on the business community, I think is problematic, not just for implementing the plan, but for the future of what we need our downtown to be so that it is resilient and a core part of our downtown. So
Completely understand.
So-
Not going to argue with you one single point, but you have a portion in your ward right now that's going to be my ward, where we've had multiple accidents and a young child die. And we have not did one single study on that road, other than the business owner asking for a stoplight. That's not the solution. That part of Southwest
Right.
Ninth and most of Southwest Ninth needs to be reconstructed. And that is in both of our wards, and that is something that we both need to be focused on, not just this.
I absolutely agree.
All right.
I've got emails with Steve asking about a study and a plan for that section that go back. And there's also a piece of the Southwest infrastructure plan. It touches the bottom end of that. There is a crossing at Bancroft that is part of our Southwest infrastructure plan.
Right.
So we need to figure out between Bancroft and, you know, pick, you know, Bell or Park, how far we go in that stretch that is a challenging and dangerous
You
stretch.
can't even drive
Southwest
on
Ninth.
Bancroft or Thomas Beck going underneath the Southwest Ninth Bridge. You will lose a tire. It's so bad through there.
I understand.
And
We're
I would
working-
like to make a comment.
We're working everywhere. I'd like to keep focused on what's at hand, and if we need
I was going to say,
a separate study for the corridors, let's have a work session on the corridors, but let's talk about what's on hand rather than use this particular item to bring up a whole.
Well,
I was here when we did the Connect Downtown, and our downtown was much different then than it is now. And then it was like, how do we make it easier for our residents to get back and forth as they commute downtown? Now, the world has changed. We have empty businesses. We have companies that are moving out of our downtown. We've got a lot of housing. Those people are already here. They're staying here. They're not commuting necessarily back and forth. It may be time that we reevaluate this plan that we have, just like all of our plans that we have. I think we need to look at it a little bit differently, and I think what you're hearing is we need to focus on some other corridors. I'm very, very concerned about the corridors in Ward 2. I fail to understand, why we keep focusing on just this when we're not taking care of other parts of the corridors. So I'm just asking that maybe we reevaluate that. It's not the same as it was 5 years ago.
So we will bring back the corridor improvements in a separate conversation with the
Yes.
work session. But I will tell you that the plans and the discussions for downtown make these improvements even more critical in having a vibrant downtown. The two-way and the pedestrian, the success of our future in downtown will rely even more on the elements that Councilman Mandelbaum just brought up with housing and attractions, and making it a destination, not only for our neighborhoods and our own Des Moines residents, but well outside of that as well. And so I can tell you assuredly that it's even more important that we get these done to keep and retain the success that we've had downtown. But it is not our only focus. This morning's conversation is about Connect Downtown, but we can have another conversation to prove out and show to you all the corridor improvements that are occurring as well. So we'll put that on the schedule.
So what,
So, yeah, I was just going to say, I think if we just focus on this, because there's no shortage of need out in the neighborhoods, I agree. I've driven many of these streets the last week, and and this is critical, because I think we have to think of downtown as a neighborhood too, as we have thousands of people moving in, and you've got the new development right over here. So there's going to be a great station.
We're talking about investing $60 million.
Well, I'm not saying, I'm not talking money.
How many corridors are we
Yeah, but
investing $60 million in?
the issue is, what is the priority within this area for Connect Downtown?
I
And we
get it.
might not invest all of it now,
So-
but what is our plan to get the things done that we originally set, and what's the priority? It could be just getting these
If
streets.
I-
I think,
I don't want to see kids being killed.
If I can
think-
say something as well, the health of downtown, I think, is integral to the quality of living for a lot of different areas in the city. And I'm saying that because, like, growing up here as a teenager, there was not a lot to do in Des Moines. I love Des Moines, but there's not a lot to do in Des Moines. Malls are dying, but that's not a thing anymore. What we would do in high school was drive downtown and hang out. Literally, we would get there after 6 o'clock and everything would be closed. We would just go downtown because that's where you go. The sculpture park coming up was integral in my enjoyment of my city as a kid. 2016, Pokemon Go came out, and I know it. I was working in the parks at the time, so I know how much it pissed them off that we were ruining the grass there. But having that as a feature of our city was integral to my enjoyment of my city at the time. And so I do think it's very, very important to then the East Village is like the New York of Des Moines. And to have that kind of environment spread to the other side of the river where we can actually exist in a place is going to be important. I also think that this discussion about the corridors is very important. I do think that to some degree, we should be using connectivity to downtown as a way to improve those corridors. I know it's easy for me to say with University when it's in the plan, but we're looking, East 14th is right on the edge of that plan as well. And I think that if we don't have connectivity, this is almost a model of what can we do to connect ourselves and to be able to have walkability and transit and all of these things. I think it's very important. I think that we should be Connect Downtown to the corridors, getting around the city to these places where you can exist and appreciate where you live.
Yep, and I think the one thing that you might, and I'm going to have Corey come up and go through the projects that have been completed or in progress, and I'll just touch lightly on the funding for some of these. Again, as I stated before, the progress the city's making primarily it has been coordinated with other infrastructure projects. So the funding for this, almost all of it is tax increment financing funding. So we can't just for the public, so I can't take money from the Central Place Business TIF District and spend it in my neighborhood. So it's almost all tax increment financing or coordinated with a sewer project, a large sewer project that's on the west side. Corey will talk about that. The East Court Avenue project, again, that was slated as a medium-term project. And since we're reconstructing the road, and there's a lot of development going on, there's a lot of businesses that are going right along that corridor. Now's the time to it's a different street than it was today, or than it was years ago. So now's the time to improve it. So I just want to make that point from a funding standpoint.
That is
but we'll have Corey come up and.
So Steve, just to touch on that, so the priority as you do these streets is whatever condition they're in, or if there's a sewer project, then we're going to implement Connect Downtown. We're not just going to, if it's not in the CIP over the next 5 years, you're not going to use TIF dollars to start tearing up a street just to tear the street up if it doesn't need reconstruction.
I would say for most of it, there is Corey's going to talk about the 5th Street to Grand Avenue. I think there's a huge connection point there.
There is.
And so when I hear people say things like, oh, when we did the Cherry Street project, right? Oh, I don't see any people biking down Cherry Street. Well, you know what? There was no one crossing the Locust Street Bridge in 2019, right? So that there's not facilities there. And so there was, to be honest with you, a few years ago, there was a huge connectivity issue within our bike network, to say the least. There wasn't connection. And so I'm really excited to show that we are going to work to make that connection, because again, we've got to make it so that to fill in some of these gaps.
And I've never objected, if you're going to reconstruct the street, that's fine. Let's do it how we planned it through Connect Downtown and use the TIF dollars to do it. I've always been fine with that, but let's not prioritize only these streets if they don't need reconstructed, or if we're not doing a sewer project, or we're not doing these things, unless there's a short portion where, okay, we've got all the other connectivity, let's fix this portion of it also.
Yep, 5th Avenue.
I'm fine with that, but when you put a $60 million price tag on just the downtown area, our residents that are watching are looking at it saying, when are we going to get that type of investment into our neighborhoods, into our corridors? That's my point to the whole thing. And then when folks are dying, then of course, if there's nothing in a CIP or no studies, and I know that we've had this discussion over years of that particular crossing, and not just the crossing, but the whole corridor, and nothing has been done, well, I mean, that's, people are going to continue to get in accidents there if we don't fix it.
Okay. All right, Corey. Okay.
Steve always takes it so kindly.
It's not personal.
No, it's not.
That's the bottom line. We don't have
Steve does a great job.
Or we have to readjust our priorities, right? There's only so much, and how do you want to spend it?
And not all of it's funds, but we can't take these funds.
Right.
Yeah. That was a good point to be made.
All right. Hello, again, I'm Corey Bogenreef, Principal Traffic Engineer. So thank you, good conversation. As Steve said, what you see on the screen here is kind of what we've implemented, what is in progress, and then what we have planned in the CIP. So everything in green kind of falls into that either it was completed or it's currently under construction. Everything in purple is either in design, so it's actively being designed, or it's in a planning phase. And then there's one project there shown in orange, which is in the study phase. And so you talk about connections, a couple examples. You have the 19th and MLK corridor up there in the top left. That's a reconstruction project. So it was identified by Public Works as a reconstruction project, and we worked with the engineering and Public Works team to, that project not only has the reconstruction plan, but also narrowing lanes, adding bump outs, adding a side path, so making that connection. You have 6th Avenue streetscape project, which, the third phase is shown there in purple, which extends down into the Connect Downtown area. And then the other one I want to point out is the study on East 6th and Penn, which is shown there in orange, There's currently no funding for construction allocated to that, but north of University on Penn, that's being reconstructed. We're extending the side path down all the way to University, and so there's a gap there from University getting into downtown. So how can we make that connection? So that's what that study is doing. And so this map also shows some projects that aren't part of the Connect Downtown plan. They weren't identified in the plan. An example is like the parks projects. You have the Central Place Levee Trail, which is shown there along the west side of the river going north. And so while that's not identified in Connect Downtown in the plan, it is an important connection for folks in that area to connect into downtown. One thing, again, you see with the prices or the costs and the costs that are shown in Connect Downtown. Connect Downtown only looked at the curb-to-curb space and how you reallocate that space. Sometimes, as Steve mentioned, the East Court Avenue project, where we're completely reconstructing the street, then we get to right-size that street, and so the curbs will be moved. So it, you know, what's shown in Connect Downtown, how it's actually being implemented, again, is not exactly how that plan lays it out. That's just kind of the framework and the vision for those streets. So now I'm going to talk.
Corey,
Yeah.
before you jump to this slide, could you go back one? So on 6th Avenue, on the west side of the river, we get the green that's already been done north of University, and then we've got purple down to the I-235. And so if I'm on my bike heading south, now what do I do?
Yeah, that's
Figure it out.
a good point. That's kind of the next piece that we see that needs to be connected. The vision is the bike network would come down 6th Avenue, turn on Laurel, and then go down 5th. And that would connect in with the work that we're going to be doing this summer on 5th Avenue between Grand and Cherry. So that's the long-term vision.
So long-term, like not in my lifetime, long-term, or?
Like, we would like to make that connection. It's not just currently not in the CIP.
Well, yeah, it's just unfortunate. We spent a lot of money on 6th Avenue with no place to go to get downtown, so.
No, we agree.
And I think that's that's the challenge of trying to become to allow bikes as transportation options. Unless you're fearless, that's not going to happen.
I have to walk that stretch.
Yeah.
But those are the things that, you know, if
Yeah.
if that's is that small stretch, what's that cost? Is there a priority over another area? Maybe
I will
and,
say-
and if we were just looking at Connect Downtown, yet that's the vision. That's what we want it to be. We can't do it all at once, and so and the other thing that we have to consider is how downtown functions. Steve's going to talk a little bit about towards the end of how we balance these projects. When they're under construction, how do they impact street use events? How do they impact people who live down here, who work down here? And so those are all things that we have to balance.
If I could just jump in for a second.
Yeah.
We talked about walking, we talked about biking in this, little north of University area. There's not a great transportation option even from right there, like a bus to get to downtown. Like you have to take I don't know, some bizarre route. It takes much longer than if you were going to drive. And so I think creating alternatives where taking the bus is not going to take you 3 times as long as it would take you to drive downtown is going to help us a lot as well.
All right, so I'm going to just kind of do a quick review of what we've done, some projects that we've done. First project is East Grand, which was completed in 2020. You can see the before on the left and then the after there on the right. And so that street was reduced from 1 lane of traffic in either direction, or reduced down to 1 lane of traffic in either direction. We've maintained the parking, and then we have the on-street buffered bike lanes with the green paint, and that street was also resurfaced. And we'll talk about some more projects here later that kind of extend the connectivity of that project. As I said, from Second to Penn was completed in 2020, and there's currently in the Public Works resurfacing plan to resurface Penn Avenue, or East Grand from Penn Avenue to East 15th, which will be something that we'll be working with them to coordinate how we extend the bicycle facility to the east. The next project that we'll highlight is Cherry Street from 5th Avenue to 12th Street. That was completed in 2020. Again, on the left is the pre-project, and then on the right is what it looks like after the construction. And these improvements were made as part of, again, a Public Works resurfacing project. And the previous cross-section varied throughout the corridor, and it included turn lanes, on-street parking, and in some cases 4 lanes during peak hours. And so this project modified the cross-section to be more consistent with 1 lane of traffic in either direction, as well as bike lanes. There's also, we looked at the traffic control at 8th Street and at 9th Street. There were previously traffic signals at those locations. Those warrants were no longer met, and so those traffic signals were removed and replaced with all-way stops. And the all-way stop was based on some sight distance issues with the viaduct, as well as a lot of pedestrians crossing there, so it still provides that crossing for pedestrians. We also made modifications along the corridor to address concerns and needs of DART, which DART Central is on this corridor, as well as Polk County. The next 3 projects we're going to highlight are some pedestrian crossing improvements that have been made. This first one, which is just completing construction, is at a crossing of Keel Way near Crocker Street. And this was identified as part of the outreach of Connect Downtown, as identified as one of the most challenging locations to cross. You have the come and go on one side, and you have Subway and a few restaurants on the other side, and it's a really difficult place to cross. And so we made we added the hawk signal, the pedestrian crossing, so people have a safe place to cross. We also made some median improvements to restrict some turning movements that were identified as an unsafe intersection there at Crocker.
Was that all funded by TIF? This whole,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know if this was part of the scope of the project, but has there been consideration to, like, does Keogh need to be 3 lanes?
Within Connect Downtown plan, I think it reduces it down to 2.
That's just not, wasn't part of this project? Okay.
No. And this, as I said, this is kind of rounding out construction, and the signal isn't activated. I was told it should be activated here by the end of the month.
So why didn't we do that? If we did the reconstruction, why didn't we implement Connect Downtown to this corridor?
This is what, oh, sorry, Corey, you want me to take it up?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at you because.
Yep, no, this wasn't a reconstruction, as Corey mentioned, this was actually one of the highest challenging
Yeah.
crossing locations.
Not to
So
mention,
yes,
the road was awful.
Right, so we did patch the pavement to get it and resurface it to get it to try out, and again, it wasn't a full reconstruction. We repaired we reconstructed panels, and then we resurfaced the street.
Okay.
So we did not move the outside curbs, except at this location, we tightened
put the
everything up
medians
put the medians in and tightened everything up, because it was identified in Connect Downtown as one of the most challenging crossings in the whole downtown.
But then how come we did not put the connectivity of the bike lanes in this portion of it?
I don't remember, I guess, I'm sorry, I'd have to check the plan to see if there's
No
bike
big
lanes.
deal, if we're gonna do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I use this corridor to bike to the Drake relays, and it's for the fearless.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Or the stupid, I don't know. I did it on 3 different days, and it's, yeah, it's challenging. But it's a good corridor to get up to the Drake area, because, any of our streets where there were streetcars originally, so there are generally not hills, so those are good corridors to bike on.
Yeah.
But this is, I would not recommend most people would bike on this.
So is this part of the Connect Downtown? Will there be bike lanes or there will not?
I don't recall there being bike
Okay.
lanes programmed as part of this,
All right.
yeah. I think it was more, as Corey said, that to actually, the ultimate plan
Perfect.
would be to reduce.
Just wondered.
lanes move- Yep.
The next location that was identified and completed another pedestrian crossing at Mercy College on 6th Avenue, just south of 235. And so this connects, their campus kind of spills over between those two corridors, not a safe way to cross. And so this connects their buildings with an activated pedestrian crossing. And again, this was installed in coordination with Mercy College. And then the last pedestrian crossing that I want to identify that was completed in 2020 is Penn Avenue at Des Moines Street. So this is just between Grand and 235. And this was done in coordination with the state of Iowa, where they have the parking garage on the west side, and they'd have employees crossing Penn. And so what we did on this corridor, there's 3 lanes going northbound, and so we reduced it down to just 2 lanes, added bump outs at East Grand and at Des Moines Street, and so that allowed some additional on-street parking. You can see there in the post picture on the right, and that also reduces the crossing distance for pedestrians. And then we have the activated crossing there. So now I'm going to start to highlight a few projects that are under construction or currently under design. The first one Steve mentioned briefly is the 5th Avenue and Grand Avenue two-way conversion project. So this is planned for construction this year, and this will convert 5th Avenue from Grand to Cherry Street. It's currently one-way southbound. It'll convert that to two-way traffic, and it will also convert Grand Avenue from 3rd to 5th from one-way to two-way traffic. And so what this allows us to, the space to add on-street bike facilities, and we'll connect that East Grand project that I talked about on a previous slide and Cherry Street. And so, provides that connectivity through downtown. There's also several walkability improvements. There's a stretch between, I believe it's 3rd and 4th on Grand on the north side, where the sidewalk really narrows down, and we're extending that sidewalk out to make it a more comfortable walking environment, as well as adding bump outs. We'll also be adding the green pavement markings with bike lanes, have those stand out, and also improving transit access. We've worked with DART on their bus stop locations and to make the interaction between bikes and the bus stops, make that a safer interaction. And again, this will be under construction this year, and hopefully completed by the end of the year.
What will you do between Walden and Locust, that little stretch of 5th Avenue there that it's very strange how that.
Oh, where there's like the alley? Yes.
Well, it's a street.
Yeah, it's a
and an
street.
alley.
So what we're doing is we're making it feel more like an alley. So we're extending the sidewalk and bump outs and actually raising the street level up. So, if a driveway or an alley, you want the sidewalk to be kind of the same level.
Cars
instead
aren't going to be
instead of
driving on
going-
that portion.
They can still access that because the Capitol Square building needs that for their loading dock and then for emergency access and things.
Okay.
But the general public will not be driving on that.
Okay.
We'll be narrowing it down so it really does feel like an alley, and it doesn't feel like if you're driving in there and in your car, it will feel like you're not in the right spot.
Okay.
So the way that we have it right now, the two-way goes up to 2nd Avenue. Are we essentially, when we're going through this plan, we're just kind of extending that so that you can continue in the direction that you're used to going, but then it has that little stop where it's like the two-way ends here, essentially like it does the Second Avenue, we're kind of moving that up.
Yep, yep, and you'll see so this project is, kind of the vision is that Grand and Locust will be two-way traffic. And so we're kind of working our way in, and you'll see here on the west side, I'll talk about a project where we're doing the same thing. And then Steve will talk about a project that's in the CIP to convert all of Grand and Locust to two-way. So we're just kind of, working our way towards it. The portion of Grand between 3rd and 5th wasn't originally in the 5th Avenue project, but it's kind of like, why would we do this 5th Avenue project and then have this 2-block gap? If we do it all together, then we make that system connected. The next project is that project there on the west side, where we're leveraging a WRA sewer project to make some of these improvements. So the WRA has a project called the Ingersoll Run Outlet, and it's segment 2, which is shown there in blue, where they'll be building a new sewer through this area. And in anticipation of that project, we did a detailed study called the 18th Street Improvement Study, which was completed the beginning part of 2021. And so the goals of that project were to improve walkability in this area as well as cycling infrastructure, improve the atypical intersections of 18th Street at Grand and Locust, kind of where the one-way pairs start and end. With Central Campus there and the downtown elementary school, it's not a very friendly environment to walk. And so that study looked at how we can make changes there and improve cycling and walking access, as well as transit access. And then we also looked to convert several one-block sections of one-way street to two-way. And all of this was in coordination and planning for future two-way of Grand and Locust, as well as a planned project to rehabilitate the Fluor Drive Bridge. So we're kind of juggling all those projects to come up with a solution that works for now and then connects into those projects. As it stands now, the project is under design, and we're working with the WRA to incorporate these improvements as part of their sewer project, which is scheduled to bid here later this year.
All funded by TIF, correct? All these projects?
The street improvement portion,
street
correct? So there's so the 3.1 million is what's in the CIP with TIF dollars. The project, if the WRA funding is quite a bit more, but the 3.1 is what is in there.
The bridge, we got federal money to help with that one, the Fluor Drive Bridge. That's actually one of our bridges we have to repair. That's one of our last.
Isn't that bridge fairly new? That bridge isn't that.
Built in the 30s.
No, I'm sorry.
Central Campus.
The diagonal one, the
Diagonal
Fluor
one on the
Drive,
map, yeah.
that comes out of downtown.
Yep.
Oh, okay. The one that nobody uses.
And so the graphic here is from the 18th Street study. And so this kind of drills into this area. And the sewer project is larger. We're actually doing more than what's just shown here. But you can see the visual of how we're reconfiguring that 18th Street area. And so we'll be converting the following one-way streets to two-way as part of this project at 17th Street between Grand and Locust, 18th Street between Grand and Ingersoll, and then Grand Avenue from here, 18th Street, all the way to 15th Street, which is the sculpture park, and then as well as Locust Street from here at 18th Street all the way to 15th Street. And so there'll be new buffered bike lanes on 15th Street, and the next exhibit will kind of show a zoomed out visual of that. We'll also have the two-way buffered striped bike lanes on Grand Avenue. There's currently just one westbound bike lane. And then the place where the 18th Street kind of crossed over, that will be going away. And so that will be, the sewer will still run through there, but that will be turned into some green space as well as a shared use path. And that was one thing we worked with Des Moines Public Schools and Central Campus staff as well as Meredith Corporation in this area to make sure that this meets, their needs and their visions. And this was one of the things that Central Campus really talked about, is providing that space for the downtown elementary school, which is housed at Central Campus, to have more green space and easier access, because it's just not, as I said, an easy place to cross. We also worked with the school district to make sure that we weren't impacting their pickup and drop-off operations, because if you've ever been down there and watched it, it's a sight to behold on how they coordinate all those buses going from all the different high schools to the Central Campus.
I have one question. Maybe I should know this, but I don't. When we talk about all these street projects, does it involve having to get utilities moved? I know when we're doing road construction and a new sewer, we put that in at the same time, and WRA works on that. The waterworks would do the new water lines, correct?
Yeah, I don't believe there's any water main on this project.
And not here, but just overall. And what about electrical utilities, overheads?
Yep, we'll work with, our designers will work with Mid-American to make sure all the street lights are updated, and then that, now that there's going to be a trail there'll be like pedestrian lighting.
And Mid-American takes care of that, correct?
On this project, yes.
Part of their franchise fees, that's what pays for that. So we're not being billed for that. I mean, that's part of the agreement, in the franchise agreement, that Mid-American will take care of all of the utilities, just like Waterworks does, and, okay.
There are arrangements such that we pay for the power, the use of the power for the light.
Right, we would pay for the use of the power.
Any upgrades in historic poles, things of that nature would be on us.
Yes, yes, because it's not a requirement, it's just what we're doing.
Yep, yeah, City Manager Sanders is right. When he says upgrades, so for example, in the Market District, in that development, it's my understanding the developer is paying an additional charge to have the poles, some of the poles, not through the whole district, upgraded to banner strength poles,
Right.
the black, and they have the, yep. So
Just
then they
like the Bridge District did, going down to the Botanical.
Yep, they
Garden.
did do that, you're right.
Yeah, they did that.
Yep.
So this area, you're taking out that street that goes by the Central Campus, like that goes over across to the bridge. So this is all going to be green space right here?
Yeah,
Is that, I think you might have mentioned this, but I don't know if I got clarification. Is this going to be utilized? Because we have this green space here right now that I don't know that it's ever utilized, if infrequently.
Yeah, the existing green space where like the trowel is, that's owned by Meredith.
Okay.
And so the portion that you see like shaded in green where the street used to be, that will be city property because that's where the new sewer is going to run. So the WRA sewer is going to go down Locust Street and then diagonal up through that green area. And so there's currently no plan for that, but it is an opportunity, for some sort of park space. But at this point, there's nothing programmed in that space.
It just seems like a nice spot that, currently it's surrounded by streets, that we're going to be kind of changing that like, it doesn't seem like anybody's ever in the grass or hanging out or anything like that.
The kids,
But hopefully maybe this will change that.
the kids from downtown school, you'll see them crossing over into that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
They utilize it, I think, as their green space now.
But
I don't know how
this-
much, but
But this will be, far better, I think,
Oh,
hopefully
yeah.
to encourage that use so
Definitely.
that when the kids cross over, obviously, well, now there's this.
You
one,
won't have
not
to
gonna be
cross.
But yeah, right now it's just all streets. And so when they do fire drills and stuff,
Right,
they
anything,
have
they'll
a
be able
place
to-
to go.
And so just one more slide on this project. This is our current bike infrastructure in this area. And so the north-south project there is 12th Street, which is currently under construction as well. And so not a lot of connectivity in this area. But once this project is done, this will be the bike connectivity. So we'll have the bike lanes up 15th Street, on two-way on Grand, and then all the way up to connecting Ingersoll. So all that is shown in green, and then the dashed blue is all the one-way to two-way conversion. So again, similar to on the east side with the Fifth Avenue project, we're working our way to convert both those streets to two-way traffic.
But Corey, that's not going to be done until start of the 23, 24 fiscal year, or are you talking about calendar year?
Yeah, so if we're talking about calendar year, the WRA is planning to bid this project later this fall.
Okay.
I don't know the exact date of that, but with the plans to start construction in calendar year 2023, it's such a huge undertaking, it'll probably take 2 years.
Okay.
To 2 construction seasons to do all this work. So, if you're just going by calendar year, and a lot of variables with the construction over 2 years, but by the end of '24 that this would all be completed.
So then, when would the uncoupling of the one-way streets happen?
Yep, we'll talk about that here in a couple slides. So
okay.
we'll get to that if you want to just hold that question for a second.
Just that portion though, are you talking?
Oh, that
Well-
portion will happen in '23 and '24. I don't know, we're still working on the construction staging of how that happens, because there's, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but if you're building a construction, or a sewer down Locust Street, that traffic has to go somewhere. And so we're still working through when those will be decoupled between 15th and 18th. Is that your question, or are you talking about further to the east?
Or just the whole enchilada that is the loop scooping, which started this weekend?
Yep,
So
so again, we'll talk about that.
When
on
could
the-
someone expect that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I don't
think
want to steal your thunder.
No, that's Steve's thunder, so, I don't mind if you steal his. That's it, in about 3 or 4 slides, we'll talk about that. Another project that is currently planned for construction in '24 through '25 in the calendar year is East Court Avenue reconstruction project. This, as Steve mentioned, will be completely reconstructed, shown there in the figure in red. And so since it's being reconstructed, we can kind of move the curbs and fit the street to meet our vision. And so we'll be reducing the cross-section to 1 lane of traffic in either direction. There's currently 2 eastbound lanes, and then up by the Capitol complex, it's 3 lanes. And so we'll be adding new striped buffered bike lanes from Water Street, so from the hub there on the Riverwalk all the way through East 14th and East 15th. So that will kind of connect that neighborhood into downtown, because East 14th can be a barrier for folks crossing through there. So we'll be adding bump outs, sidewalk improvements, as well as adding kind of our typical streetscape downtown with street trees where there currently are no street trees. We'll also be realigning Finkbine Drive and Day Street, which are up in the Capitol complex area, and they kind of curve into East Court, and they make the sight, if you're on those streets, you really have to like turn around to be able to see where traffic is. And so we're bringing those in at 90 degrees to make a little bit safer intersection. They're challenging. Yeah, they are. And so we've worked with the state on those improvements. We'll also be reducing the speed limit along this entire corridor. And as I mentioned, construction is planned over 2 seasons, starting in calendar year '24 and extending into '25. This will be my last slide. Again, kind of looking at this map again, I just wanted to highlight a few locations. I've already previously mentioned the East 6th and Penn conversion study. That's trying to make that connection of the bicycle facility that will be built as a shared use path north of University and bringing that into downtown and also converting both those streets from one-way to two-way. So there's currently a study that will be starting here this year. There's no funding for that construction because we don't necessarily know exactly how that's going to happen. And we're also working with the DOT because anytime you make changes to those bridges and the on and off ramps, you have to, get that approved by the Federal Highway as well as the DOT. I mentioned the, Southwest 11th. That is a project down from MLK down to Dart Way, kind of in the bottom left corner, going north-south, and that will connect. We're currently 12th Street. We're adding buffered bike lanes there. So that will extend the buffered bike lanes down and connect into the trail system that connects to Grays Lake. So that will make a north-south connection in that area. That is planned for construction next year, so calendar year 23. Second Avenue lane reduction and pedestrian improvement project from Court Avenue up to I-235. Currently, Court through that stretch is 4 lanes northbound, and it's a pretty easy stretch to drive really fast getting out of downtown. And with the skate park there, trying to improve access to the skate park and then adding some on-street parking. And so that project will reduce the travel lanes. It won't convert to two-way traffic, but it will reduce the number of lanes and adding bump outs and improving the crossings up by the skate park. I mentioned previously the 19th Street and MLK project there in the top left, adding a side path to make that connection across 235. And then the Grand and Locust one-way to two-way conversion project, which Councilman Voss was asking about, and Steve will come back in and
Sorry, before
talk
you
about that.
switch over.
Yep.
You were talking about the 19th and MLK had crossing over 235, but the little line only goes up to 235. I'm just kind of,
Yeah, it will connect across the.
oh, it's going to go all the way
Yeah,
across and then,
yeah.
okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions on this map? All right.
All right, so the city does have money programmed to start a further study of the Grand Locust one-way to two-way conversion later this year. The study will look at further of how this would actually impact the corridor. And you can see the list there, the need for turn lanes, conflict points. When we, obviously when we convert it to two-way, there are obviously more turning movements at a given intersection. That's what we call conflict points. Impacts to on-street parking and impacts to emergency response, truck turning movements, and then transit impacts. Again, right now, there are multiple lanes in each direction. And so when buses or emergency response vehicles turn, they have more space to maneuver. And so one of the challenges that we are dealing with as we add bump outs to try and shorten up the pedestrian crossings is the turning movements of our emergency response vehicles and our DART buses. And so that is a challenge. There's not an easy solution. Some people say, well, you should just get smaller vehicles. Well, I'm not an expert in the emergency response and fire department, but I think they need the larger ladder trucks to respond to emergencies with the buildings. And so we are working through that with them to try and tweak designs of the bump outs. But I do want to point that it is a challenge that we face with this. When we talk about, let's see if I think I have. And again, that's what this slide is highlighting is the things we have to work through: events, access points, emergency response, loading zones, on-street parking. And let me just go right to this slide right here. And this is an example, okay? So this is looking on Locust Street at 7th Street, looking west towards 7th Street, okay? The Connect Downtown plan even calls for adding left turn lanes, right? The left turn lanes are neat because now we have, instead of multiple lanes going in a direction, you need the left turn lane so that it doesn't, one left turning car doesn't completely gridlock the entire corridor. And so even though 7th is a one-way, you would need the space for the left turning vehicles on both sides, right? You can't just put a left turn lane on one leg and then have the lanes not line up on the other side. So visualize essentially one side of street parking is going to be removed. It's going to be gone. So that's a trade-off. That's a hurdle. And so what we were talking about was, well, instead of maybe jogging the vehicles back and forth, just the entire length of Locust, the south, like one side of on-street parking is completely removed.
I'm sure all the businesses down there are all for that, just getting rid of the parking in front of their buildings.
Well, that's something we would have to work through with the study yeah, I can't speak for that. I don't know if they, so, yeah. Yeah, but I just want to be aware, these are the challenges and the trade-offs that we're looking at in terms of, like I said, I mentioned the emergency response. It's a challenge. Fire Marshal Jonathan Lund, Chief Takip have been outstanding to try and work through these, but there isn't a simple solution. It's how can we tweak the radiuses, but it's not that simple. We're tightening up the corridor that makes it difficult for the larger vehicles to maneuver, and the same with DART as well. We've got to look at how the progression works along this corridor, because when we tighten it up, does that make it longer for a transit user to go to one end to the other? We certainly don't want to make transit less desirable. So, I mean, I don't have an answer for this quarter, but obviously when we look in the future, things like the north-south corridors, do we have dedicated bus lanes, right? Then that we want to make sure that transit use is to attract more transit users. So these are the things that we'll be working through as we do this study. So.
And what was the year for that study?
The study would start. We have money to start this fall. So it's about a year-long study, and so I think we did program money in the CIP to look at put money aside to start the decoupling. So with the sewer project, 15th Street to the west would be done, with the sewer project, which is a 23-24 project. So it'd likely be 24 because you figure the sewer construction would be in 23. The decoupling, there wouldn't be money to do the rest of it between 5th and 15th until probably that 26-27 timeframe. So that would be about the soonest that we could do it. Again, we've got to work through the study. We've got to work through our public engagement. I do share the same concerns that Councilman Gatto brings up, that the loss of parking, the challenges with emergency response, turning. Those are things that we've got to work through. So
That's an uphill road, Steve. I hate to be you.
it's
going to be a challenge right through there.
Absolutely. So here's a snapshot. When we talk about progress, I believe the city has made great progress in the initial few years of this plan, from eliminating peak hour restrictions on streets, which again is again back to trying to slow traffic down and tightening up the pedestrian crossings. You've seen a lot of the bump outs go in, to making streets like East Grand Avenue and Cherry Street more complete streets. Cherry Street, if you remember, was a street that for a portion of it was 4 lanes, then it went to 3 lanes, but then in the 4 lanes, sometimes the parking allowed, so that you know if you should be in the outside lanes. And so making that a consistent corridor, as well as a huge connectivity, was a win. So here's a snapshot of the existing bike network. We talk about improving connection. Here's what's been done already to date, is try and start building that out. So you can see the red now making its way across with what's underway. And then here's where we'll be with the 2026 program. So again, it's building that connectivity across. I do agree with Councilmember Voss. You can see the gap on the Fifth Avenue stretch right in the middle there. We've made progress coming down 6th Avenue corridor and to work across, to get across the interstate, but there is the gap that's between Grand Avenue up to essentially be a Laurel, right? It would be the connection point. There's a gap there, but despite that, the city has made, in my opinion, great progress to kind of improve that connectivity across, where you can at least actually get across downtown from one point to the other. So,
Steve, the material that I've read about other cities that have already converted one-way streets to two-way streets, material from Urban Land Institute and Smart Cities and other things, they remove a lot of traffic signals when they do that and convert to stop signs. Do you see that happening in downtown Des Moines?
I think, I'm not sure on these two corridors, but certainly in downtown, that could be a possibility. And we actually, as part of the Cherry Street project, we did take out two
I
signals
need you to do it
over
on
there.
Cherry, but so that would also reduce the costs if you don't convert traffic signals, you just eliminate traffic.
Yep.
I know that that'd be a change for a lot of people to get their head around, but I believe when Baltimore did that, they reduced a third of their downtown traffic signals. So
Yep.
I hope when you look at this, you'll take a look at, and I got to tell you quite honestly, on Grand and Locust, the so-called rush minute, there aren't that many vehicles on the street then, so.
Okay.
I will say, I don't know, I'm assuming everybody knows about this. I don't know if everybody knows about this, but with the way the traffic signals are set up right now, going east, is that Locust going east? You can set your car on, like 22 miles an hour if you hit a green light and just coast and like literally have your hands off the wheel and just go straight and not like do nothing. So putting stop signs in would be great to have like a sense of like.
Well, at least
you can-
it's only 22 miles.
It is only 20, yeah, it's a thing that gets teenagers to drive slow, like as a gimmick. But it is a thing where if you had stop signs, you know, you're regularly stopping, and so then you're going to have more awareness.
There's lots of, the one ways are easier to get our signal timing progression down to where that can be the case. If you drive 22 miles an hour, you can go from one end of Grand to the other, as long as you drive those. Obviously, if you speed, then you're going to run into to red lights. But when we switch them to that will be, even with the signals, you're likely not going to be able to do that when they're switched. So. Okay. So in summary, I do want to reiterate, again, the city is, in my opinion, making great progress on improving connectivity, making things safer. Again, I want to reiterate, as stated before, you see the dollar signs up there. Almost all that is tax increment financing or combined with street reconstruction efforts. And so this is kind of the map of what is programmed over the next CIP planning.
Almost all of it, what is not, or you don't have to give me that number now, but if you can email it to me, I'd like to know what exactly it would be in the CIP that's not.
So, I'm not sure if there's anything other than maybe just to be clear, on the bottom, you see the Meredith Trail extension from the 5th Street Bridge to the Chris and Marcy Coleman Bridge.
Yes.
That is, we don't have money currently programmed for paving the trail, but we are, since we're rebuilding the levee, we're winding there. That is not tax increment financing. That's the part of the levee project.
But
But yeah.
that dollar amount isn't included in here.
In the 47.5?
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, it wouldn't be. Yeah.
Well, you just said almost all of it, I just wondered what it is.
Yeah.
If it's all of it, kudos, I'd like to see that, but
Yeah.
if it's not, I'd like to see what the difference is.
Okay.
Speaking of kudos, on that Cherry Street improvements, isn't there one person on your staff that kind of brought that to your attention, that we should?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we do CIP projects, we have our team, and in this case, Jeff Wiggins, caught it on the resurfacing program and then worked to, now the Connect Downtown plan, again, that's where when we talk about why, people might say, well, why do you need to study study things? Well, the Connect Downtown plan is a 30,000-foot level. I think Connect Downtown had portions of that as identified as sharrows because they're not, and when Jeff went out there to further investigate it, he was able to get more of a consistent corridor with the bike lanes, so, yeah. And there.
Well, good work by Jeff on that. Oh,
Absolutely.
I think he happens to be in the room, so that's even better, so thanks.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Robust discussion as always. So appreciate everyone's time. We've got, I believe, closed session at 3:30 today. So we'll see everyone back here in 6 hours.
I think you said. This is what I emailed. Does anybody need hard copy?